The U.S. Supreme Court has decided to take up former President Donald Trump's appeal in the Colorado ballot case. The state Supreme Court disqualified him late last month, citing the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. It bars those who have taken an oath and participated in or aided with an insurrection from holding office again. Oral arguments are set to begin February 8th. CBS News election law contributor David Becker joins us now. David, let's talk about the timing and the impact on states across the country. Why is it so important for this case to be decided now?
Well, there are over 30 cases where there's some kind of challenge to Donald Trump's eligibility under the 14th Amendment. Some of them have been decided. Some of them are still very much in pending status. As we know, the main decision by the Secretary of State there is being appealed through the judicial process through the main state courts. And in some ways, the Colorado Supreme Court ruling as it did was a gift because it gave the Supreme Court a way to rule on this sooner rather than later. And that's really important. It's important for a variety of reasons. It's important for the voters of the United States to know who they can vote for. It's important for the election officials who are trying to print ballots and figure out who's going to appear on those ballots. And lastly, it's important for the Republican Party to know whether or not they have a qualified candidate. That 14th Amendment does exist, and it has to have some kind of meaning. And the question of whether or not Donald Trump engaged in insurrection is central to that. So today's decision that came out just 2 days after the petition from Donald Trump is not a surprise at all. I think everyone expected the court to take this case. But it is, I think, a positive development that they moved so quickly after the petition was filed and they set oral argument as quickly as they did. Oral argument's going to be held just over a month from now on February 8th, indicating to me that the court understands the urgency here and wants to render a ruling and clarify this as quickly as possible. Just
to take it a step further on the timeline, if we have oral arguments in early February, when could we see a decision in the case?
I mean, it's a crapshoot. We don't know for sure. I think the fact that they said it so quickly indicates that they intend to move expeditiously after those oral arguments. They could rule at any point after that. It usually would take a minimum of a couple of weeks. It could go all the way till the end of June. I think that's unlikely given the urgency they seem to be showing here. But we'll just have to wait and see how long they take. They're going to deliberate on this fully. I think so long as it's decided in the next few months, it will give election officials, at least for the general election, and voters and the Republican Party an opportunity to appropriately react and plan for that ruling.
What are the central arguments here? And based on your experience, which side is the most likely to prevail?
I don't think I'm going to take a stab at predicting exactly where the court will come out, other than to say that I think we'd be making a mistake to assume that just because 6 were appointed by Republicans and 3 were appointed by Democrats, that that's the way the case is going to go. I think the justices are going to look very closely at this. I think they're going to take the Constitution and the 14th Amendment prohibition on people who have engaged in insurrection serving in an office of the United States very seriously. With regard to the arguments, there are some that are more procedural. Is this the right time to bring the case? This is just a nominating contest at this point. We're going to need to see if the Republican Party needs this decision now, because theoretically they could go through many different mechanisms to choose a nominee. There are some other somewhat less procedural, more substantive, but more on the procedural side arguments. Do we need some kind of congressional action to enable the 14th Amendment to be enforced? Is the presidency an office of the United States under the 14th Amendment? I think most think that the arguments there are not particularly strong for President Trump, but that might be a way for the Supreme Court, if they want to go there without ruling on the ultimate substantive issue of whether or not Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection. And that's going to be the central core issue if they get all the way to that point. I personally think that it would be most helpful if the court ruled on this very substantively on the merits, so it's very clear as early as possible whether Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection or not, and is therefore qualified to serve as president.
Well, that would have a huge ripple effect on a number of cases, most of which would be the January 6th case. We've been talking with other guests before you joined us about how unprecedented this is. It thrusts the Supreme Court into the center of an election cycle. If you step back, what do you think people at home ought to know about this moment in history?
Well, it is momentous. I mean, we have not had instance where a major presidential candidate had potentially engaged in insurrection. And we should remember that this is a legitimate question, whether or not Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. In February of 2021, a majority of the United States House, including 10 Republicans, voted to send articles of impeachment, which included incitement of insurrection, to the United States Senate. And then a majority of the United States Senate, including 7 Republican senators, voted to convict him of inciting insurrection. So this is a legitimate question that is squarely within the United States Supreme Court's purview. They're going to need to resolve this. This is a big issue, and we should all take note of it. It's unusual, but it's also a little bit different than, for instance, a situation like Bush versus Gore. Bush versus Gore happened after the election. We were trying to reconstruct an election that had some problems, the hanging chads and the disparate rules that were applied across the counties within Florida, after the fact, after the voting had already occurred. This is why it's so important for the Supreme Court to rule early. If they can rule early, they can set the rules in advance. And regardless of whether you like the ruling or not, the political parties, the candidates, and the voters can adjust accordingly and make their decision in November 2024 appropriately.
David Becker, thank you for your analysis on this breaking news.